Okay, welcome everyone. I'm Bruce Eckfeldt. I'm going to do a little intro. I'll get our guest introduced. We'll get into our conversation. Welcome to our LinkedIn Live today. Our topic today is taking off the mask on social media and the power of vulnerable visibility. I'm excited for this. I've got two really amazing guests who have a lot of experience, a lot of insights, a lot of thoughts on this. We've had some fun prep calls, and I'm excited to get into this on the live today. So in terms of our topic, let me just cover a couple logistics things, and then I'll introduce our guests and we'll get going. So we're going to be live here on LinkedIn and YouTube. We're going to be watching the LinkedIn comments. If you have a question, comment, go ahead and throw it on there. If you're on YouTube, jump over to LinkedIn. I'm not going to be watching the YouTube comments, but yeah, feel free to throw in some comments, questions as we go here. Also, if you're watching the replay, go ahead and leave a comment on the LinkedIn. If you have a question or comment, put it on the LinkedIn page. We'll watch that page for a while. We'll get to people on that. So even if you're watching the replay, feel free to drop a comment, drop a question there. So let's meet our guests and get into this. Our first guest, Andy Gwynn. He is a LinkedIn strategist, professional speaker, business coach who's helped thousands of professionals generate leads and meaningful connections through authentic LinkedIn activity. And his work emphasizes strategic outreach while staying true to your voice and values. With all that, Andy, welcome to the program.
Hey, Bruce, thanks for inviting us, because you and I have been connected for a long time, and we've had various conversations over probably a few years through LinkedIn. So it's great. It's great to be involved with this, and seeing you in the flesh as it is.
Likewise. It's fun having you here. Next up, we have Terry Gormley. He is a mental performance coach, business advisor, and founder of the Mind Shaper Academy. He specializes in helping business owners unlock freedom, fulfillment by aligning their mindset with a purpose-driven strategy. And he's no stranger to the power of vulnerability and leadership himself. So with that, Terry, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Bruce. You'll have to excuse me. I've lost my voice, but in true showman style, I'm showing up. So
the show must go on.
Thank you again for inviting us. Really, really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. So let's kick things off with a general question, and I'll let you each kind of answer that, and then we can kind of get into some of the discussion. And I want to start with just this. What do you feel, or what's your assumption around why people feel like they need to put on a professional mask, or why they put on a professional mask when it comes to social media and how they present themselves, on platforms? Like, what, for each of you, like, what's the underlying kind of psychology, or what do you think's going on here? Andy, why don't we start with you, and then we'll hear from Terry.
Okay, I was going to hand it over to Terry, because he is the master psychologist, but I think he and I both work closely together as well, and I'm fascinated with the psychology because of my background of originally sales and sales training and coaching. I think I probably boiled it down to, I don't think people learn how to market and sell. And what I mean by that, I think marketing and selling is just about communication and understanding people's behaviors. And so I think there's then a lot of preconceived fears and concerns. I niche into LinkedIn, as you know, and people say, I don't like social media. And I say, okay, let's park the social media thing, because we do this now, this live stream, you could class as social media. Your posts are the social media side. But I think 80% of LinkedIn for me is the direct connection and engagement. And just look at LinkedIn as a vehicle. But the way you find and connect with people is the same, whether it's on email. In the old days, I used to knock doors and ask for the buyer of a factory if I could sell my safety footwear to him. That was the vehicle, was me and my car. And then it was on the phone. Now it's LinkedIn. So I think people just don't know how best to engage. And it's any different that people say, I couldn't stand up and speak in front of an audience like you do. Why not? They're ultimately fearful of what other people think. So I think they, A, haven't learned, and B, have got these preconceived fears around what should I say, how should I say it, what if people think, what if? I think.
Terry
will expand on that.
No, I think Andy's right. A lot of it is I think there was something said a few years ago around people would rather feared presenting in public more than they did dying. And I think that's one of the things. But the other big thing is, I think we're really conditioned by what we see around us, and on the internet, it's social conditioning. So we're influenced by people who we like aspire to be like, and they very often only publish the stuff that everybody wants to see. And I think that leads us a little bit into the topic that we're talking about, because actually people do really, really resonate with you when you share not only what's amazing in your life, but also what's less amazing, or the struggles that you have, or the challenges, because it makes you more human. Yet people fear very much what other people think about them, and I think that's the kind of the basis of it. I think, Bruce.
Yeah. I think it was Brene Brown or something had this kind of thing. It's like, vulnerability is weakness to me and courage in others. Right. It's this idea that, like, if I'm vulnerable, like, I'm exposing myself, like I can be judged, or I'm going to be evaluated, or I'm not going to appear like I've got everything together. But when we see someone else do it, we're like, oh, that's courageous. Right. Like, I give them credit for like putting it out there. And I think it's interesting, kind of this whole connection. And I certainly, I've kind of learned over the years, I would say over the last 5, 6, 7 years of LinkedIn, as I've gone from, very businessy focused to actually starting sharing some things about my life and, about my kids and stuff like that. Like, those are the things that end up getting a lot of engagement. And I've had to really, there's still always discomfort, but you kind of learn to accept. It's like, okay, yes, you're exposing yourself there. You may get a couple of comments, or you may, not appear perfect, but ironically, that's actually what creates the connection.
Yeah.
So I'm curious if you've seen shifts around this, because I do think that, particularly with LinkedIn, given we're on LinkedIn and we've got some kind of LinkedIn expertise here, a decade ago, LinkedIn was basically resumes, right? And that's definitely shift. I'm kind of curious what you've noticed, or how you've seen platforms in general, but particularly LinkedIn and kind of these more professionally focused platforms kind of shift in terms of the content people are posting and what people are engaging on. What have you noticed around that? I'll let either of you kind of pick up on that one.
Go on, Andy. Yeah, go on. No, Bruce didn't, but I did. You go, Andy.
Did you? Okay. And I think this is part of it. We're having a bit of fun and we're chatting. I'll give you a couple of key examples that happened in my life on LinkedIn, because I think there's two sides ish for LinkedIn. My marketplace is very much the SME, the private business owner, maybe sub 100 employees, but we know there's a massive amount of involvement, engagement, and content with the corporate world as well as maybe the job seekers. So I think there's two styles maybe. What I really noticed was a shift in COVID, because everyone was locked down online, and as you know, I have a system that can consistently go out and connect with people and then message and engage with them for you to engage with your ideal contact. I use that word, but for a lot of us, it's ideal sales prospect. And I was getting clients coming to me going, wow, I've got a contact with a global purchasing director, and that I've been trying for years. And I said, it's no wonder he's locked down in his bedroom. He's got nowhere to go. He's online. He's on LinkedIn. But what that meant was there was a massive explosion of noise. To the point, my brother was a big corporate lawyer, and he said, I'm thinking of coming off LinkedIn. I am getting bombarded with crappy sales messages, his words. And I went, don't come off LinkedIn, just ignore them, because LinkedIn has many, many, many points of value. No more than building your network, which we often hear is our net worth. But it meant we've got to change the way we communicate. What it also meant was more and more people decided that they needed to post. And they were just, and LinkedIn made a change where you could double the length of your posts. And I just put my head in my hands and went, what we're going to see now is twice the length of the crap we've been seeing earlier, because people aren't learning how to write stuff that engages. So I certainly, for the corporate market, I think people want value. We've got to give value. We've got to give before we ask for something. But it's about talking to people in your style. Okay, you've got to be mindful of the style of the recipient. But often a large proportion of them will be a similar style to you, because that's what we tend to do naturally. And I remember a big defining moment a decade ago. I was working with a corporate in the UK, and I got hold of I was speaking with the chief exec, but I'd get 10 minutes in his diary through his PA while he's moving from the train to his car. And it was a Friday afternoon, and we covered the things we needed to cover in 5 minutes. And I said to him, Max, I always remember his name. I said, I don't envy you. I don't know how much money you're making. And I paused, and there was silence. He wasn't going to tell me. I said, but it's 4 p.m. on a Friday afternoon, and you're going from train station to car to drive home. I said, when we finish this car, I'm going to the pub for a beer. And his words were, you bastard. And we had a laugh. But the reason I quote it is it was human. But to a lot of other people, he's this big corporate CEO that you can't get hold of, that is dynamic. You've got to call him sir. You've got to turn up in the suit. And actually, if you can find the commonality, whether it's in posts, whether it's in messages, whether it's in a phone call, it's about relating to the human being. Yeah. So I've seen the shift, in answer to your question, of massive more usage. But the problem is there's not the same shift of people learning how to engage in the right way.
Yeah.
That's my take on it.
Terry, what have you noticed?
Yeah, I think that I've seen a shift. Well, I'm old enough to be around long before social media. And I think I have to share really that for the first 30-something years of my life, I grew up in a mining village, and I always behaved how I thought people wanted me to, or I should behave, rather than just being me. And for a quarter of a century now, I've just been true to me, and that's the shift that I've seen on social media and LinkedIn, where people aren't just sharing, I'm a rock star, that they are now talking about life, adding value, aligning with their own personal values, because we do attract people like us. If other people have got values like ours of authenticity and just tell the truth, and I'm having a good day, but also I don't have good days too. I think people are moving more into that and giving value first, as Andy say. I think it's just a beautiful thing. Many people on social media channels, big influencers, always talk about giving away your best stuff, and I always think give away your true identity on there, and you will attract people like you, even if they don't say anything when you're on there. But they very often they pop up and say, hey, I saw you do this ages ago. It's really stuck in my mind. And I think that's the kind of shifts that we're seeing, and it's adding more positive value to everybody else around them. That's the shift.
Yeah. Andy,
I think there's another good example I've got that might amplify that. Terry might know, because he's based in England. He is British. I'm British, but I'm based in southern Spain, as you know. And I say to people when writing your profile, yes, 80-90% of it is tell people what you can do for them, how you can help them, but also make it personal. Yeah. And I remember putting in one of it was like other memberships. I put CAMRA, CAMRA, which some of the Brits and Tel might know stands for the Campaign for Real Ale. And a few months later, I had a guy message me, thanks for connecting, blah, blah, blah. P.S. What is your favorite beer? Bang, we've got rapport, we've got commonality, we had the conversation, you can have the meeting. So I'm passionate about our veterans, our military veterans, and as Telly's an ex-military. And so I put that I'm a member of the Royal British Legion Riders branch, so therefore I ride a motorcycle and I support the vet. It creates commonality. So yes, there's the showing your openness, your vulnerability, but there's also humanness. It doesn't all have to be boardroom speak or legal speak or accountancy speak.
Yeah, I've always been shocked. I've had a couple of posts that have done like really well. Like I remember one, it was like when I'm doing fasting, like I have a kind of a fasting protocol, and I'll take a towel, like a kitchen towel, and I'll just tie it around the refrigerator doors, and it's just a little cue to remind me. It's like, oh, I'm fasting today. Like, so don't go walk in the refrigerator. And I took a photograph and I posted, and I talked about this whole kind of little things we do to create friction, to make it harder to kind of, engage in bad habits, or kind of things we do to kind of nudge ourselves and everything. And it got all this attention. I'm just like, really, like this little thing, but I think it was a combination of a little slice of my life, like talking about the fasting. It was like, oh, okay, then I connect with all the people that are kind of into health and fasting, and then the kind of habit people like that, sort of engages them. And then it's like literally a picture of a towel on the refrigerator, right? Like it's this, it's not staged. Like it's very, and I've always been fascinating to sort of see where these kind of little nuanced aspects of our lives that we don't think much about, right? We just kind of gloss through life without thinking about it, but sort of capturing those and showing those. It's like, it is this kind of interesting slice that now, people feel like they know you a little bit more. And go ahead.
I think the blend is, because I get people saying, LinkedIn, I don't want it to be like Facebook where people are posting about their breakfast. But I think the thing you might have done there, if I heard it right, is it's this blend of talk about something that everyone's got an opinion on it. Everyone's got a refrigerator. I had a client who bought his new top of the range Jaguar, and it went viral. Well, everybody's got an opinion about a car. Terry's wife's a petrol head. She would have commented.
Yeah.
But if you weave it in to the message about what you're about in business, so why the fasting helps you with your performance, or what it's done, or don't talk to me about work because I've got this in my mind. If you weave in how you came to make the money to buy the car or something, if you weave it in to make it relevant to business as well, I think you get that engagement because you've made it personal. Because everyone's got an opinion about a refrigerator and food and diet and health. And then weave it into a message, maybe with the call to action. That's where it's only that 2 millimeters, I think, that makes the success and raises you above this. So many people, I don't want to be talking about my breakfast. I don't like social media. No. People respond to commonality and still show them that you're professional, maybe.
Yeah. Terry, I'm curious if you see some strategies or what actually connects in some of this stuff. Like, what are you noticing around, the type of content or the types of kind of vulnerability, like the types of things you share that connect versus those that don't as much?
Yeah. I think ever since the beginning of time, human beings have built communities, and a buzzword for it now is build your own tribe.
Yeah.
And I think what we love to do is whether it's obviously you're in America, so you call it soccer, but whether it's football here in the UK, or it's politics, whatever it is, people like to connect with people like them. And we say in sales, Andy loves this, where all things are equal, people will buy from people they know, like, and trust. And I think that's it. The more you share your life and the little things in your life, the more connected that you come with somebody else, and the more you find your tribe. And I think it's deep in our psychology to be part of something. Many people say you go back to the Stone Age with the saber-toothed tiger, and if you go out, all that. But we do love to be connected to people like us, and these little things where there's no other agenda around it, just, hey, this is me, I think people do love.
Yeah. And did you see a formula or proportion that works, right? Because if you just posted about your breakfast every day, obviously you're not going to, people may know about you, but they may really not care, or there's no really, what do I do here? So how do you balance kind of the professional, like, okay, thought leadership, hey, look, I'm going to talk about strategy or about how to set goals or how to, achieve, profitable growth or something, versus these kind of, this is a little slice of life things versus kind of this, maybe more engaging personal content, right? Which is, strategic, like it's do something. But how do you balance that, or what do you find there's a right proportion around these things?
We're going to call it balance with the refrigerator moment from now on, okay? And what we haven't said about, and what you haven't said about Tel, he's also an incredible master at marketing and funnels and stuff, as well as the psychologist of the peak performance, mental performance stuff. So Tel, you go first, man.
Okay, yeah.
Well, you set me up there, right? I was so listening to that. Bruce, you had me. I was all in there. What was the question again?
Yeah, it's just like it's proportions, right? You see, like, if you posted, refrigerator pics all the time, right? Like, people are going to kind of know, but they're like, well, who?
Yeah, unless they love food. I think the truth is that we're all different, and I think that if we treat it like a bank account, we just keep adding value in different things, share things. If you're going to do 6 messages a day, as an example, I would be looking at 2 personal things. 2 things that add value to people that people don't want, and 2 things where you can connect and share, just as a basic example. But I think it's fair that everybody's different, and the more that you share personally about yourself and your family, the more people will come connected. Because I always have this thing where I say, don't become the dick at the party, and people look at me like, what does that mean? And I say, well, if you go to a party and you say, buy my stuff, buy my stuff, buy my stuff, pretty soon nobody's going to talk to you. But if you like connect with others, you post something and people come through to you like, that towel, my mum had them towels, or I get it, I do this, and they connect with you, then it's almost then adding value back to them and being in their mindset rather than your own. And I think that's how I would kind of respond to that.
Yeah.
Now I'll throw you back under the bus, Andy.
Yeah. Hey, I like buses, because we've heard a lot about how many times a day, and like exactly the question you asked, what's the ratio of personal stuff against heart sob stories, against business, against offers, against more pitch sales. You know that we have developed our post party club because we got to understand the algorithm from LinkedIn and posts. So when I talk about posts for LinkedIn, then I look at it differently. I don't know about the other social networks, that they're not my niche. But the algorithm needs certain amount of engagement at a certain speed that you then engage back on. So actually our system, as you know, is we only talk to our members about posting once a day. And actually there's only 3 post parties a week, because if you, my view is if your content is powerful enough, you can generate the inbound conversations, leads, whatever it is you want. When we discovered that a few years ago, and we built the tech around it, and it is globally unique. I know that. I keep looking to try and find competition, and it's not there. And I've got global leaders telling me that. When we discovered it a few years ago, it suddenly negated this. Well, should you be posting at what time of the day is the other big question. You know, what's the ratio of heart sob stories and personal stuff and business stuff, and what time of the day? It sort of negates that. So I wouldn't do 6 a day, but I think you use that as the metaphor. But I might mix it up. If I was doing 3 posts a week, same sort of ratio, I might have something personal once every couple of weeks. Depends how often I'm posting, because we do a lot of webinars, as you know, and I've just got my VA posting. I've said I've got to have something value stuff for you, because I can't just keep promoting webinars every week, because people will get turned off. But also, if I'm going to give value stuff, let's throw a personal stuff in maybe every 3, 5, 6. I think, like Tail said, you make it to suit your style, but there's got to be some variation. I think if you looked at it or asked somebody you valued, what do you think, and they went, it's a bit top heavy on that, you probably want to balance it out, don't you? The key, there's 2 things, isn't there? There's getting exposure. Our system does that with the algorithm, but then your content's got to be good. And if all you're doing is pitching webinars, they will turn people off. So
you'll lose attention. It's interesting. I found that I've gone much more personal than I would have guessed, say, 2 years ago. And I think some of it is, and I've certainly found this with other folks, kind of, my situation or similar situations, which is, we have a lot of credibility in other ways, right? Like I write for Inc. I have all these certifications, right? Like I've got testimony, like I've got a lot out there that's, he's, experienced and knowledgeable and, an expert in a lot of things. And so I find that my posts end up being much more about getting to know me, because particularly for kind of coaching and this kind of stuff, where you have a pretty intimate relationship with leaders, and you have to talk about some pretty vulnerable things with them about what their challenges are and what do we really need to do to grow and scale the company and things. So it's kind of this, they really need to get to know me through the content, so they know, like, how I think, how I work, what my values are, right? They have to relate, and they feel safe. They have to feel enough connected that they're going to actually think. So my content, my posting content, tends to be quite, personal about all the other activities I have, or kind of my insights around things, and less about, hey, I'm really smart, or I know these systems, or I'll help you scale, or we'll increase your exit, right? Like they kind of know that the post becomes much more of a personal thread for really connecting to folks.
Absolutely, I think you've got it right. I mean, my niche is LinkedIn, but you're talking about the overall balance. Because I put a video recording of me and a client on Facebook of him talking about what he got from us working together, and I had a very eminent investor come and said, "I want to work with you." And I said, "Why?" I saw that video; it was real. I can't remember the swear words he used about not being somebody with your proverbial head up, your proverbial what's it, like so many other people out there in your space in social media. So it was all about the realism.
I think if you connect with people and build rapport, deep rapport, I think that everything else becomes so much easier. If you're in sales and you don't have rapport, I don't think you can go to the sale, in my view, without having deep rapport and understanding what people's needs are, eliciting from them. And I don't think you can go at that step. And I think it's the same. I think people build that trust and rapport with you without even, because you'll say things in language. You have a surface structure and a deeper structure. So most people, I think, watching this will understand. But when you say something on the surface, a phrase like, what time is it, as an example, Do people want to know the time? Well, yes, they do. But there's always a deeper meaning. I've got to pick the kids up for school, or I've got to have another meeting, or I've got something else. And I think if you pick up the little linguistic traits that people, you can build rapport just by being personal and sharing what's important to you and why it's important. And then everything else, I think, becomes easier.
Yeah, I agree. One thing that I found, and I'm kind of curious to see what you found personally or the people you've worked with and stuff, is, a lot of this, you end up having to kind of take some stands or, have some opinions about things. And it's interesting because I think what I've learned is, as I've put more kind of opinionated content out there, not necessarily controversial, but like I take a stand or I make a statement or I reveal some part of myself that's, like I do a lot of stuff about my kids and being a divorced dad and kind of some of the, challenges, but also some of the nice things about being divorced. Like I get a lot of time and things like that. Like I've put stuff like that out there, and I kind of find things fall in 3 buckets. There's the people who are like, oh yeah, I totally agree. And then there's the people who are like, I don't necessarily agree, but I respect that you put that out there, and I'm going to engage with you because even if I, have a very different view, like it feels real, and I want to connect with you because that's a real. And then you've got some groups that like I may be pushing some people away, but I find that even if I'm going to push some people away, or I'm going to maybe disconnect or not, be a little bit repulsive kind of on some things with a couple of people. Because the people that I do connect with now, it's so much better, or I have such a better connection with, it ends up being a much better engagement or strategy than if I'm constantly kind of posting out kind of generic things that, it doesn't necessarily, not that I'm offending people, but is going to be kind of neutral across the board, but I'm not going to get any real positive connection around. I'm just kind of curious how you've seen the strategy in terms of what you put out there and how you attract and repel audience or your, ideal connections and things like that. Andy, you got a smile on your face.
I was smiling because I was waiting for Terry. We have members. I have 2 members. I have the post party members and I have my direct outreach members, and I bring them together once a month. And Terry helps facilitate. We ran a call yesterday. We talked about this, didn't we? Because I've got a great colleague called Peter Wendt, who is a master at teaching people to write content, and he says if you're not upsetting a small percentage of your audience each time, you're probably not got a strong enough message. So I'm not going out there to piss people off, but I accept there's people that will never buy from me. I've dealt with religious groups in the UK. I deal with people who don't like bikers or that, and they're never going to deal with me. So I've learned to accept that because I wanted to please everybody, like I think a lot of people might do. So I would just say focus more on the two buckets that are serving you. Getting more of those.
Yeah, I'll comment and then we'll go to Terry. So one of the things I do a lot of work with, I did a lot of work with cannabis originally, and that got into psychedelics. And I have our partner, venture capital firm, and we talked to all these psychedelic companies. And obviously, it's somewhat of a controversial topic, right? Like in terms of kind of drug policy, and obviously there's some kind of religious, but from a mental health point of view, like that's been really fascinating for me. And I can't tell you the number of straight-laced executives who I get on the phone with, and we're kind of having and then at the end of conversation, they're like, "Oh yeah, and I want to talk about psychedelics." I'm like, they're like, what have you tried? What was this like? I'm thinking about doing this thing, and so like even the people that I'm thinking are going to be totally like, oh, straight-laced, like they don't want to hear about. They end up coming to the table, so you just never know like where you're going to create these connections. If you just put it out there, you're going to create the connections. Terry, what is your take on this kind of?
Yeah, well, I think. I brought my kids up with a saying: "You never get it wrong doing the right thing." So long as you believe that what you're doing is the right thing for you and your business, then the outside noise doesn't really should not really affect how you make your decisions. One thing I'm sure of, though, is you connect more deeply with an audience if you're not beige and vanilla. If you're not sitting in the middle, you do connect more with your tribe. If and the people that you repel probably weren't going to stay with you long term anyway. And so I would say, like, if you have a viewpoint on it, don't be fearful of sharing it. Just be you and do you, and let the outside world take care of themselves.
Yeah. That's great.
Looking like the three of us, we should capture everybody though, shouldn't we?
Yeah.
We got all the bases covered. So we're gonna hit time here. Andy, if people want to find out more about you, more about the work that you do, what's the best way to get that information?
Connect with me on LinkedIn. There is only one Andy Gwynn that looks like this on LinkedIn, spelt that way, GWYNN. Anything to do with LinkedIn, I've alluded to two things I've got. If you're looking for consistent activity in your LinkedIn strategy and campaigns, and if you're looking to get more volume and results out of your posts, that's the easiest way. My automation will accept. You may well get messages, but once you message me, I will respond personally. And if you don't connect with me, by the way, I know, Bruce, you've got a lot of connections. I got 25,000 connections. There will be some of those connections you will be able to find and go engage with, knock yourselves out. But that's probably the best way.
Perfect. Thanks, Andy. And Terry, how do people get hold of you?
If LinkedIn T Gormley, I think mine is, and if you connect with me, that's great. I'll share things all around mindset and business and strategy and stuff like that. All my own personal thoughts around stuff, no fluff. Or alternatively, I've just set up a new landing page for mindshaperacademy.co.uk where we'll be sharing all things mindset, mental performance, strategy and structure, and consistency and discipline.
Awesome. Thanks, Terry. If people want to get a hold of me, just bruce@eckfeldt.com is email. Eckfeldt.com is my URL. Follow me on LinkedIn. We're launching a podcast in the next 2 weeks here, so you'll start seeing a lot of new fun stuff about the interviews I'm doing there. So thank you, Andy. Thank you, Terry. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for joining me, and thank you for everyone watching. Again, if you're watching the replay, leave comments, questions there. We'll check that out as we go, and everyone have a great day.